Predict to commit. We're only doing one today. I'll do a quick refresher on both of our teams. You have 2 hits. I'll do it a little bit differently. You have 2 hits. Safety Jordan Smith, who's on his official visit this weekend, and then quarterback Jared Curtis, who's taking his official visit June 13th. You only have 1 miss on your team, and that happened on Friday when offensive lineman Jared Smith committed to Rutgers. I'm not going to say that I think that there's still a world there. No, you know what I am going to say? There is still a world where that one could hit. We saw last summer before June 1, Chase Linton commits to Rutgers, camps at Georgia on June 1. Georgia falls in love with him. He winds up at Georgia when it's all said and done. So we can't rule it out entirely. So for now, it's a miss, but it could still potentially hit. Running back Derek Cooper, linebacker Tyler Atkinson, defensive lineman Carter Lucky, tight end Mark Bowman, edge rusher, outside linebacker Kamari Brooks, defensive lineman PJ Dean, wide receiver Craig Dandridge, defensive lineman James Johnson, tight end Caden Prothrow, offensive lineman Desmond Green, and Ole Miss linebacker commit Isaiah Williams. Huge weekend for your team, Jordan. Now that I look at it, let's see here. Lucky, Dandridge, Brooks, Johnson, Prothrow, Green, and Williams. 7 official visitors this weekend are on your predict to commit team. How are you feeling going into the weekend?
I feel pretty good. I think that the fact that so many of those guys are visiting at this time of year, that seems to bode well. And I'm hoping some of those guys that Georgia feels a little bit better about, they get in the ear of some of those other guys. Maybe I need to send somebody a list and say, hey, you need to really work on this guy. We got to make this thing happen. I don't even know. We got to come up with some stakes on what, predict to commit, nets us. But no, I feel pretty good. Now, if for some reason, if things don't go well, maybe I am too busy to pop on next week's episode. But as of now, I'm feeling pretty good.
You're right. I think, when we launched this at the beginning of this year, it was more like, let's just test it out or whatever. And while I don't think you and I have any issue with playing for pride or bragging rights, which we both enjoy having over one another, you are right. The class of 2027 predicted commits are probably going to require some kind of very greater stakes, or maybe we even come up with something for this cycle mid. We'll see what happens. All right. For me, I've got 3 correct ones right now. Buford offensive line commit, Graham Houston, IMG Academy defensive back commit, Zach Fort, and then most recently Carrollton wide receiver commit, Ryan Mosley. I also have 1 incorrect, Jackson Cantwell on the offensive line. Other guys that I have, running back Jay Lamar, offensive lineman Malcolm Gaston, defensive back Tyreek Green, offensive lineman Ekene Boko, offensive lineman Brett Collegier, defensive lineman Ernest Rankins, defensive back Peyton Dyer, defensive back Justice Fitzpatrick, defensive lineman Whitley Caddo, and Alabama offensive line commit Chris Booker. Today, we are just doing predict a commit, not flip a commit, but, and this is going to be the plan for the entire summer, Jordan, when we are doing these predicted commits the week before official visits, you can only select players who will be on official visits this upcoming weekend. So we've already talked with everyone about the entire official visit lineup, many of whom are already on our predicted commit team. So the pool is maybe a little bit smaller than it typically is, but I will let you, because I'm, creating these, random rule sets, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, this is tough. I love this twist, and I think you've done a very good job, Ben. If you're listening to this, you kind of have to stay on your toes, whether it's, flip a commit or now we've got a very smaller pool to choose from. My pick for this episode is going to be defensive lineman Tico Crittenden. I think this is sort of a situation where, I look at not only my team, but also just how this class is coming together. And I think one of the bigger questions is what they do on that defensive line. I think that he, checks a lot of boxes, 6'4", 300 pounds. I think that you made a point earlier that I did want to kind of talk about, he's from Lithonia. You look at how they continue to recruit the state of Georgia well. And I think that, going back to when Kirby started as the head coach at Georgia, that was a huge priority. I think it's kind of been hit and miss depending on how good the state of Georgia's class was in a given year. But it seems like in the last couple classes especially, they've done a great job when it comes to staying in the state and getting the guys they want. I see Tico Crittenden being a guy that checks a lot of boxes, and he is going to be my pick on the predict commit.
Love that pick. Obviously, it was on my list because the list was pretty small this week, but definitely was high up there on it. Really, for me, it came down to 2, and I think that you were probably going to pick the other one. So for me, it was you were getting to decide for me who was going to be on my predict to commit team for this week. But I like that pick a lot. I will say, do you think it's Crichton or Crittenton? I don't know the answer. So what do you think?
Your guess is as good as mine. Before you started talking, I made sure when we did the first segment of this episode to listen to it. I didn't even know the first name, so I made sure to make sure and pay attention to how you said it, because I know sometimes you do a great job, especially when we have interviews with guys, to have them say their names. But I get so in my head about trying to pronounce some names. So if I said that wrong, Tico, please don't take that out on me, because I am trying my best.
I don't know the answer to it either. So I'll try and get that answer for us for future reference. It's one of my pet peeves. I hear, not naming any names or pointing any fingers. Just it happens to everyone. Like sometimes I hear folks that are not, they don't have necessarily relationships with these players or whatever, and they're just name dropping them left and right, and they're getting their names wrong all the time. It's like I try for us over here at Dogs 24/7 to make sure we're getting it right as much as possible. And also I'll call out when we don't know, like this time. So,
and that's why you're a professional.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. All right. My pick, I'll admit, I did not think that there would end up being a scenario where this guy would ever end up on my predict to commit team. And I sort of laid out why earlier in this episode. But Carrollton, Georgia offensive lineman Zakai Helton is someone that I think has wanted to be at Georgia for a long time. And there's other schools involved in this, so I'm not saying that it's a shoe-in for Georgia to be able to get him. But I think that if Georgia says you are our center in this class and we want you, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat out Georgia in this one. Now, what I don't know, and where this is a little bit of a risky selection, is I don't know what that conversation is going to be like with him this weekend. I don't know right now what he's going to weigh in when he gets to Georgia. But I'll say, if Zakai Helton is comfortably 290 plus and Georgia pushes for him, I feel good about him ending up in Georgia's class. And that's really been the entire discussion. Like when you talk to people about the type of player that he is or the film that he puts out on a week-to-week basis, there are no questions asked about what type of player Zakai Helton is. It is really a matter of big people move big people in the SEC, and 250 and 290 are not the same thing. And so if, 290 holds up and that sticks, I like Georgia to push for him because I think that his film and the program that he's coming from and what he's asked to do as a center, calling things at his high school, Georgia's really going to like. And quite frankly, there's nobody else that Georgia, I have Malcolm Gaston on my team. You've had Desmond Green on your team. There's guys like Chris Booker that Georgia's recruiting. They have the ability to play center. But there's a difference between having the ability to play center and having been a center. And that's what Zakai Helton is. And so when PJ Dean made that switch to defense, of all the true center targets, Zakai Helton was really all that was left. I feel like it could be trending that way. It could not. But we'll see about that. What I will add is, for me, there were really 3 visitors this weekend that should have been in consideration for us for this. It was Tico Crittenden, it was Zakai Helton, and then it was Chancellor Campbell. I don't know enough about the Chancellor Campbell situation to feel comfortable picking him, but I at least wanted to call that out just because with the rule set that I'm putting in place where we're only going to be picking guys from the upcoming official visit weekend, unless we have a show and Chancellor Campbell hasn't committed and we're still doing the predict commit segment by, mid-July, the chances of him being on either of our teams is pretty slim at this point. And there is definitely a scenario where he's a Georgia commit and wasn't on either of our predict to commit teams.
Really like that pick. Like you said, I was between Zakai and Tico, and I think that you're right that you should feel good about the chances there just because we still don't know who that center is going to be in Georgia's 2026 class. I like that pick, and I'm probably reading too much into this, but I always think that it bodes well when you got a guy like that who goes to Carrollton and has a teammate that's committed. That doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, but I like that pick, and I think you should feel pretty good about that one.
All right. Our predict to commit teams, we're about to be finding out here in the next couple of weeks is when, the reality behind our teams is going to really show itself. But I think we're both in a good spot. We're going to have some hits. We're going to have some misses, but I think the percentages that we're looking at right now are pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if we win 100%, that wouldn't be any fun. Like,
Yeah.
oh wow, you know, like
We're ruining the whole thing. Why would anyone subscribe to Dogs 24/7 if they knew exactly what was going to happen here, right?